Okay. The House Criminal Justice Committee will come to order. Would the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Hope.
Here.
Representatives Andrews.
Here.
Carter.
Present.
Breen. Young.
Here.
Arbit.
Here.
Evendorf.
Here. He says with surprise and shock and awe.
Cerniglu. Cerniglu.
Sarnagaloo? Here.
Fillers.
Yes.
Mueller.
Here.
Bazat.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Begol.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have 12 members present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Representative Andrews moves to adopt the minutes from the February 6th meeting. Without objection, the minutes are adopted. I'm going to make a standard announcement regarding anyone who would like to speak. You must turn in a white card to the clerk before testimony begins. We'll now hear testimony on House Bills 4488 and 4490. Here to testify, we have Connor Loftus, Representative Conlin, and then we'll get to the other folks. Okay, we'll get to the other folks once we hear from the bill sponsors. You can come up too, Rep. Conlin, if you're ready. You can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Connor Loftus, as mentioned, and I am Representative Morse's Legislative Director. She apologizes she's unable to attend today. She had a conflict with another committee hearing, but she appreciates the chair for taking up House Bill 4488. This legislation would allow sexual assault survivors the right to have either a support person of their choosing or a sexual assault counselor present during the reporting of a forensic examination process. Those who have experienced sexual assault have had their autonomy taken from them. We want to make sure that when a survivor reports what happened to them, they have the autonomy, support, and dignity they deserve so that the process is not re-traumatizing. Ensuring that they are made aware of their rights and the supports they have during every stage of the reporting process helps us reinstate that autonomy and will hopefully reduce barriers to reporting. In conversations with the Michigan Domestic and Sexual Assault Prevention and Treatment Board, we recognize that Section 2B might be too burdensome for their current budget and staffing levels. As a product of their input, we will have a future substitute that we will offer to remove this section altogether. Again, Representative Morse appreciates the chair for taking up House Bill 4488, and she appreciates the work that RISE has done in putting this bill package together and looks forward to their testimony.
Thank you. Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for allowing me to testify today to House Bill 4490. It goes without saying that sexual assault is one of the most traumatizing experiences that one can undergo. At the same time, and to the great discomfort of survivors, evidence of an assault should remain unaltered leading up to the full forensic medical examination needed to collect the important information that could connect it to the assailant or assailants. My bill is simple. If a hospital has a shower facility available, any individual who has been subject to a forensic medical exam has the right to shower there at no cost after the exam takes place. Survivors of sexual assault deserve to be treated with dignity, and that's what HB 4490 is about. The hospital experience is already traumatizing enough. We should allow individuals to wash themselves clean of the crimes that were committed against them. Thank you again for giving me the latitude to speak today, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Representative Young.
Thank you so much. Thank you to both of you for bringing this important legislation before us. I'm just curious because I wasn't aware, how much are these survivors being, we're going to get that later, so you're looking for somebody. I'm just so curious to know because you would think that this is like a no-brainer and this wouldn't be happening, but I can only imagine after going through something like this and then getting a bill for having taken a shower. that would really be heartbreaking. So, but I would like to know, like, how often does this happen? Every time, or if we could get us some additional information on that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. I think you'll get some more answers from the bill sponsor about these details.
Questions? I don't see any more questions, so we'll go on to our person on Zoom, Emily Meinke, representing RISE. And you can go ahead
Hi,
whenever
can
you're
you hear
ready.
me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, just hang on. I'm so sorry. Okay. So first of all, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you today in support of House Bill 4488 and House Bill 4490. My name is Emily Meinke. I am from Mason, Michigan, and I am a survivor of the disgraced Olympic doctor Larry Nassar. As many of you may remember, when the news broke in 2016, um, there was a lot going on, especially in the state of Michigan, because that's where this all came to be. And some of you may have also watched the sentencing in January 2018, as over 100 survivors, including myself, read victim impact statements in Judge Equilina's courtroom, as it was simultaneously broadcast on multiple TV channels and streamed on the internet to international audiences. In the essence of time, I'm going to summarize my story. My passion for gymnastics and pure talent had me on track to be an Olympic caliber athlete. I traveled nationally and internationally for competitions, and at the age of 10, I broke my back and began seeing Larry for treatments, which was his opportunity to use his calculating, manipulative skills to access my body and sexually assault me multiple times a week over the course of 15 years, taking me from a prepubescent little girl into adulthood. I won't get into the details as I want time to speak about why we are here today. When the news broke, I knew I had to face what I had suspected all along. I held this secret for decades, and it had significant detrimental consequences, including alcohol abuse, eating disorders, and a string of abusive romantic relationships, and I could go on. Speaking about my horrific experiences to anybody was terrifying, let alone a law enforcement officer. Over the next year, I witnessed hundreds of my sister survivors calling into the tip line and sharing their stories, all eerily similar to my own. On day 4 of the sentencing, I sat in my living room in Florida as I worked from home, glued to the live stream, as one survivor after another bravely faced her abuser and read the statements. I started seeing old teammates I hadn't spoken to in years, and my heart broke into pieces for them and for me. That Friday afternoon, I knew I had to speak up and disclose my abuse for the very first time. I had never told a soul, not my husband, my parents, my coaches, my friends, or my teammates. I immediately reached out to an old teammate of mine who had come forward, and she put me in touch with the prosecutor as well as a gentleman who is now my attorney. I was pregnant, afraid, and felt so much shame and guilt. Before I shared my story with anyone, I spoke to him. I was afraid of admitting that I didn't report it at the time of the abuse and scared that I would somehow be held responsible. For some of the girls who came forward, they weren't even born when I was being abused by Larry, and if I had spoken up at the time, their innocence would have been spared. That's something I have to work through and reconcile in my mind. My attorney listened intently, explained the process, and what to expect. At the time, I had no idea how my family would react, and he was the only person I trusted had my back 100%. Since I didn't disclose my abuse for over a decade, and I was having to recount my story, I was experiencing re traumatization, flashbacks, and major anxiety and depression. I was vulnerable, scared, and questioning who I could trust. I felt a level of comfort when my attorney was present that is hard to put into words. He provided me with a sense of calm and confidence and helped me think clearly when my emotions were all over the place, fluctuating between anger, sadness, shame, worry, and more. Survivors deserve this confidence throughout every single step of the investigation process. I want you to think about how you'd feel if someone close to you was assaulted, a family member, a friend, a neighbor, a teacher. Wouldn't you want him or her to have the right to as many resources as possible in order to make it as easy as it can be to navigate the legal and judicial system? Wouldn't you want him or her to be informed about what rights and resources are available at the beginning? I am asking you all to support House Bill 4488 and 4490 and secure basic survivor rights to millions of survivors in the great state of Michigan going forward.
Thank you. Do we have questions for Ms. Meinke? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
We are going to go at ease at the call of the chair. Okay, we're back in order here. We have some folks who would like to speak to the bills. Julie Brixey and Rachel Sisson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Emily, for your powerful and compelling testimony. RISE first reached out to me over 2 years ago, and I was immediately interested in working on this package with them. We've made a lot of progress in recent years, shifting the culture around sexual abuse, but there's still so much work to be done, especially within institutions, where our laws and policies have historically been harmful to survivors, often discouraging them from reporting a crime by putting them through an invasive and often re-traumatizing justice system during a time when they are most vulnerable, possibly experiencing shame, guilt, self-doubt, and PTSD, and are recovering from a physically and emotionally violent attack. We need to hold predators accountable for criminal sexual conduct, but we can't do that if our justice system is chasing out survivors who are trying to come forward. They deserve sensitive care, respect, and to be offered dignity at every stage of the reporting process. This bill helps us achieve that and make the pathway to justice a little easier by assuring survivors are made aware of their right to seek support and comfort throughout the process and have the ability to wash away physical and emotional remnants of their assault. So we have been working on a substitute draft with the Michigan Domestic Violence Prevention and Treatment Board to bring them to a supportive position on House Bill 4488. The primary impact, as Connor mentioned, would be removing Section 2B, which they consider to be burdensome with their current staffing and budget levels. The board does really important work that aligns with our goals here, so we didn't want to be punitive by assigning onerous report collections and data analysis. The board also expressed some concerns about the phrase attorney retained by the survivor being present during the administration of sexual assault evidence kits. We want to ensure that this bill doesn't potentially compromise any kind of legal investigation, but at the same time, we want to ensure survivors are aware of their legal rights and have access to their legal counsel when it won't impede a potential investigation. Once we finalize the stakeholder input, we'll give you, we'll forward along the substitute. If I could answer Representative Young's question about how often and does everyone charge for a shower? Everyone does not charge for that. But this issue was brought to us by a community that recognizes that this does happen. If you think about, anytime you've been in the hospital, if you have a box of Kleenex, you're basically being charged for every item that you have. And the showering facilities could be one of them. We know that the hospitals here in our area are not doing that, but because it has happened in other areas, we want to take the steps to make sure that people are treated fairly. I'm happy to answer any other questions the chair or any members have.
Representative Bazat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've handled many of these cases. Law enforcement has always been an advocate, in my experience, for the victims. We want to put the bad guy in jail. So I'm very interested in these. If we can make the system better, I'm in favor of that. You mentioned stakeholders. Are you working with the Chiefs Association, the sheriffs, prosecutors, the sheriffs? Have you talked to them and included them in the process?
So we have another bill in the package that we don't have before you today, and that one is more related directly to the law enforcement piece of handling the kits and those types of things. And we have a work group with the, what's the word called again?
The Michigan Domestic Violence Prevention and Treatment Board, which includes a member of MSP. So they are already kind of working with us, but we are planning to convene this work group and get stakeholder input from full, sheriffs and the associations as well.
Anybody else? I see no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee.
Okay, a couple of cards to read in here. The Michigan Domestic and Sexual Violence Prevention and Treatment Board opposes HB 4488 as introduced. They would support with the H1 draft, which is not in front of us today, but which will possibly be coming to us. And then HB 90 they support. The American Association of University Women of Michigan supports both bills. They do not wish to speak. Representative Carter moved to excuse absent members. There being no objection, the motion prevails by unanimous consent. And there being no further business before the committee stands adjourned.